Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
For 2 centuries, the clash of ideas without violence has been a hallmark of Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, London. The brilliant and the bonkers gather every Sunday and proselytise.
Christian, Muslims and Jews, Buddhists and Druids, leftists, rightists and centrists, the famous and the absolutely obscure, literally take to their soapboxes and talk, or how they talk, and somehow it never comes to blows.
It is a cacophony that has always fascinated me. I first visited Speaker's Corner in the 1960s, as a small child, you understand, and I still go today. Maybe I've learned a thing or two in the last half-century. Who knows?
Our first guest has created a virtual Speaker's Corner on the internet, and so the fame of one small corner of London Park is now spreading worldwide.
He's Bachir al Zaim from Lebanon, the south of France, the United States, well, everywhere really. And he's brought his soapbox onto the Sputnik. Bachir, welcome.
Thank you.
It is a fantastic idea, I must say, a virtual Speaker's Corner. Because, of course, not everyone can get to London and see the real thing. Where did that idea come from?
The idea came literally of what you just said. No one can come to London. And I was lucky enough to visit the Speaker's Corner in 2003, 2004, before the social media changed the world. And at that time, I was fascinated, like, wow, same words you have used, and this is something civilized. Muslims, Christians, Jews, talking like normal humans should talk. And my part of the world, this is a dream come true. So after social media, I kept going there due to Facebook, Twitter, changing the world. I said, why not help third world countries in particular? This is because of Arab Spring at that time, to make a change instead of Bouazizi in Tunis going and burning himself to share his message and dying for nothing. I said, we need a Speaker's Corner in every part of the world. Not everyone is lucky to come here, but everyone, we can take it the other way around. This is how we started. In 2014, we started on the project, and I think we are on the very right track.
No, my wife is expert, but I'm not so expert on the technical side of all this. But how does it actually work?
All right, it acts as if you are literally in the Speaker's Corner. You do something, we call it a beam. It's a video. You say whatever you want to anyone. You decide who can watch it. Most of the people choose everyone, and anyone of any part of the world can interact back with you, either audio-visual or just audio. And you have a very interesting feature to countries like North Korea, let's say, that have no democracy at all. We have an anonymous feature. You can hide your identity. So you can say something by your voice, or you can record documents or whatever. So we gave chances even to the most like dictator countries to share their opinion. And so we have 3 features. Someone from Brazil can interact with someone in London, or someone from Venezuela, or someone from Ukraine, or any part of where you have little freedom of speech, Algeria, Arab countries, GCC countries, anywhere in the world. Even now in the States, you have too many things going on. Yeah. So we are allowing everyone to talk with everyone, and not everything is allowed.
And this all happens, presumably you download an app.
It's a free app. You download the app.
A free app?
Of course. It's encouraging freedom of speech. It should be something for free, of course. So, yes, it's freedom. You decide the topic. Basically, people in Speaker's Corner talk about politics and religion and journalism.
But you can talk about anything, really.
Anything, fashion, meditation, sports, anything you want.
And then you can share it further.
Yes, of course. That's the point. And we have all the languages.
So all I've got to do is put my phone in front of my face and deliver a few minutes on what I think on the latest issues of the day. And that is seen by everyone else,
of course,
who has the app, if they want to.
If they want, if they are following you. And we have a notification whenever you say something, everyone will know, and people can decide how they comment back. We don't have texting.
This is what I find so interesting. There's no text.
And it's for a reason. In Hyde Park, you discuss Not, you don't write a letter and give it to Mr. George. You tell him. And texting can create too many fake accounts. Like on Twitter, I still remember once I was in a debate in Washington, and someone said the Russian foreign ambassador foreign minister, said something about Syria. And it was a fake account. But until they discovered it was a fake account, the tweet made a buzz. So it's either Mr. George Galloway or Mrs. George Galloway, or it's not. You cannot fake you cannot make face off, if you remember the movie.
So
it is a fascinating concept.
It's needed.
If you don't mind me saying so, I wish I'd thought of it first. How's it going? How's it doing?
So far, so good. Like, for example, Snapchat took them 1 year to reach 100,000 users.
Really?
Luckily, in 3 months, and we're coming from backwards. Usually, we inherit Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those platforms. And we're doing it from London, and we started in poor places and where democracy is really sensitive. We're almost 100,000 in 2 months, and we are aiming to reach 1 million by the end of this year. And we will spread it. Like, we were trying to create a culture or something, a synonym for Speaker's Corner everywhere in the world.
It's a fantastic concept. Of course, it emerged from specifically British conditions.
Yes.
You could never get a Speaker's Corner in, if you don't mind me saying, Riyadh. Yes. You could get one in Beirut, but you'd probably be dead by the end of the
yes,
session.
Unfortunately,
Jaw is better than war.
Of course.
I spent, as you may know, 30 years in the British Parliament. The two sides are exactly one sword and 1 foot apart.
Wow.
In
and you
Parliament,
have to stay, yes, in Parliament. And you have to stay behind the line. So if you stray across the line, you can no longer talk.
Wow.
Which means, literally and metaphorically, you mustn't come to blows here. Okay. You can argue as fiercely as you like, but if you stay behind that red line, you literally can't come to blows, even with a sword. So, I mean, I'm not that proud of much of what Britain does or has done, but I'm pretty proud of Speaker's Corner. Do you find, as you go around the world, as you do, that people, that the fame of this place is already established?
Yes, to be honest, yes. Yes, this is a big achievement for London, and I'm privileged to be spreading this worldwide. I consider myself lucky to be able to do this platform, and I think, yes, we have to give the credit for the British people since 1872. It's not something new. It's something that's
Why did it occur then, at the time?
There was a tremendous upsurge in politics in
against the king
1870. There was governments changing, parties splitting. It was a unique moment. A bit like the moment we might now be in. The reason I asked you that question is most of the people watching this will be British, and most of them will never have gone to Speaker's Corner, because one of the characteristics is that it's foreign people who mainly go. So you may achieve something unique. You may get British people now starting to key into Speaker's Corner in a way that they haven't.
This is my dream, honestly, to have British people on Speaker's Corner. It will make it genuine. It will give it credibility. And everyone is welcome to share, like someone from Venezuela or someone from Brazil or any part of the world can discuss someone from Britain. And definitely it will serve humanity. I come from a place that was occupied 2-3 times in my lifetime. So can you imagine how much freedom of speech was something like dangerous? And if you dare and go to express your thought, you are either in jail, or if you're a politician, you're killed. So we need a Hyde Park culture everywhere in the world. Speaker's Corner is a must.
We live not a mile from Speaker's Corner, and she's never been there.
I've never.
So that...
I'm missing a lot.
I know.
Every time I go there, I have a goosebump. Trust me. So civilized.
And of course, it can't come to blows on the internet, which is another good thing. The likes, how does it compare with any other app, or is there no comparison with any other app?
Actually, with all modesty, I consider no, there is no comparison, because we're the first app that allow unlimited video chats, unlimited. Like usually it's one way, you reply, that's it. If Mr. George said something, an interesting topic, you can have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people sending videos either towards you or between each other. It's like a spider web. Until today, not even Facebook has it. We have the live streaming, and we are more advanced. We have the anonymous. Anonymous is something. When we use the anonymous...
I see you're stressing the anonymous.
Yes, because I noticed frustrated people wanted to share their misery, but they're scared to say who. When we gave them the anonymous feature, they were talking and talking and talking and talking. This will change regimes. This will change governments in a good way, not in a bad way, in a civilized way, because people are starting to talk. They were talking on social media, and they changed the world. Now it will make it even a better place. Unfortunately, third world countries, they are always scared, and they just want to eat and worry about raising the children. When you give them a feature that they can express themselves more without saying who they are, typical for something like North Korea.
And might someone try and close you down? Could they close you down, or is the internet above all of that?
Of course, they can try to close us down, but we will survive, same as Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We might be shut down for a few minutes, maybe 1 hour. That's it. The internet is all over the place. Yeah, untouchable. Yeah.
Unbeatable, yeah.
Now we have artificial intelligence as well coming, so can you imagine?
Well, when I entered Parliament, there was no internet, no mobile phones, no emails. Even the fax hadn't been invented.
Wow.
How's that? Wow. You see why I'm slightly backward on the technical side of it, but I'm quite good on a soapbox. So I might just bring a soapbox to your site and do something. How would I do that? I just download the app and that's me on?
And you can log in from Facebook or Twitter or an email, and you can start beaming. That's it. We want to have you. We will be honored to have someone like you on our platform.
And how do you do it? What's the address? What's the internet address?
It's hydeparkcorner.com. It's on
hydeparkcorner.com.
Yeah.
I must say it's a great name.
Yeah.
I don't know why no British person thought of that. But mind you, I don't know why the British Royal Mail didn't think of being Google before Google, if they had.
Maybe with time I become a British citizen, it will go back to the British people. Trust me, I consider this project is for the British, not for me. I'm just making some people's life better at third world countries and where I come from. Yeah, Hyde Park is for Hyde Park.
It is correct to be proud of the things that are worth being proud of, and if you're a critic of Britain like I am, that is something to be proud of. hydeparkcorner.com. Here I come.
Yeah.
Write that down. Get me a soapbox.
You just made my day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for hosting me.
Coming up next, a former advisor to the government of Australia on the dangerous rivalry between India and China. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Sputnik. The two most populous countries on the earth, China and India, both nuclear armed, are in a dangerous standoff, which could turn into war at any moment. Big news, you'd think.
But it's not big news, or for most people, any size news at all.
The rivalry is not just about maps, of course, but about the growth of two behemoth economies and the different political paths they've taken. Our guest is Dr. Kadira Pethiyagoda, a former advisor to the Government of Australia, a fellow at the Brookings Institute, a former visiting scholar at Oxford University, and a former diplomat representing Australia overseas. Not a bad CV for such a young man. Doctor, thanks for joining us on the Sputnik. Tell the people, most of whom have no idea that there's a problem between India and China, what the proximate reason for the current standoff is.
So there's a disputed border between the two countries, and recently Chinese troops had begun building a road. Sorry, I should say there's a three-way sort of issue here. So Bhutan claims some of the land, which China also claims. And the Chinese troops had started building a road on that land. And India found that to be quite a sensitive issue for themselves, because that bit of land is connected to an area which they call the Chicken Neck, which is a narrow strip of land in India which connects India to its northeastern states. And if China were to have strategic access to that, it would spell quite a significant threat to India. So India then sent troops to the border and supported Bhutan's claims and Bhutan's complaints about China building that road. And then you've had incidences of stone throwing between the troops, and it's become a big sort of diplomatic stoush between the two major powers. In addition to the fact that it's close to that Chicken Neck area, also there's a lot
quite a
of
big chicken.
Yes, yeah.
It's not. We're not talking that.
No, not
that.
a real chicken. Definitely true. But I guess also that the area which in India's northeast has seen insurgents and separatists as well. So I think it's quite sensitive for India. But also there's a lot of symbolism associated with this. So if you look at both India and China as former colonies, I guess India is a former colony and China was sort of subjugated by the West for a long time. They both have this intense attachment to protecting their territory. And so they see that any sort of infringement on territory is it really riles up the people in both of those countries. And so for India, where it's a democracy, the government needs to act strong that it's protecting its territory. For China, the Communist Party's legitimacy lays partly on being able to maintain the territorial integrity of China. Obviously, you've got issues like Taiwan as well.
Yeah.
So the symbolic importance is very great for these two countries.
Well, China has more than one territorial conflict with more than one country. Of course, there are conflicts with Vietnam. There are conflicts with Taiwan, with Japan.
In the seas,
there's
yes.
conflict in the sea. There's conflict on the land. I return to my point. China isn't short of territory, so why is it so keen on expanding its territory or defending what it says is its territory that is disputed by other people?
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, it's very interesting because you've got this sort of dual messaging going on. You've got, China having these conflicts with a lot of its neighbours, at the same time trying to project this peaceful rise of China rhetoric and the benevolent leader kind of rhetoric, where you've got the Belt and Road Initiative, where China tries to project itself as a peaceful leader and, employing a lot of, I guess, Confucian language in doing so. But at the same time, I guess it's trying to use a stick and carrot approach. So there are certain underlying tensions with India as well. And I think one of the major concerns for China with regard to India is if India were to ally with the United States and countries like Japan in efforts to contain China. And I guess that's one of China's greatest concerns, is that if there is some kind of a conflict with the United States, it may have its trade routes cut off, and India is in a very strategic position to do that in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah. And is that concern real, you think, with all the other things on Trump's agenda?
Yeah, well, I think the irony is that it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that if it does push India, then it makes it more likely that India will go towards the United States. Yeah. So it's quite a difficult issue for them to handle, I think.
Now, you describe India as a democracy, which up to a point everyone could agree with, though it's a very imperfect one, many internal problems, and rising tide of violence and fanaticism. You imply that China is not a democracy. I would argue it's a democracy of a different kind only. But the one thing you couldn't argue with is that these are two increasingly gigantic third world behemoths, huge beasts. And surely if they could get along with each other, they'd actually be able to better beat those who did colonize them, both in the past.
Yes, and I think that's some of the sort of intentions of China, in a sense, in that it tries to, I guess, through the Belt and Road, it tries to unite a lot of the countries in Asia, and with itself as seen as the leader. And it is true in that, as two rising developing countries, they have convergent interests in a lot of areas. So in addition to economic partnerships and trade, they both want, I guess, fairer global trade rules. They both want a greater say in international institutions and rule-making. They want to reshape the global order. And I think most importantly, they both want a multipolar world order, where it's not just the West that purely dominates and other countries also can have influence. So there is a lot of potential for cooperation there, I think, if some of these sort of smaller, specific issues were sort of gotten over.
Yeah, you see, the reason I ask, I'm wondering if someone's stirring it up, because if I look at it objectively, there is no good enough reason for China and India to be at each other's throats, even if at the moment it's just throwing stones. But I could see many reasons why another power would want to have them ranged against each other on the wonderful principle of divide and rule. You could think of nothing more perfect than the two greatest developing economies actually being enemies of each other.
Yes, and I mean, I think if you're talking about the United States, the Bush administration...
You got it. I told them you were a clever fella.
10 points for you.
I mean, the Bush administration really went a long way in that. I mean, that and the rhetoric around that time was really that they're going to try and use India to balance China. And the Indo-US nuclear deal was an attempt to do that. Obama said that the India-US relationship will be one of the most important. So they're really laying out the red carpet to try and attract India. But I think the issue is that India has always had this, I guess, principle of strategic autonomy, being a post-colonial country, that it never seeks to ally with any particular country, but it will pursue its interests. So I think what India will do is use the United States when it needs to get leverage with China, against China. It will use China when it needs to get leverage against the United States, and they'll play that game.
Very smart.
It has been a paradoxical period, though. I mean, for many decades before you were around in your lofty positions, India was an historic ally of the then Soviet Union. As long as Congress were in power, you could generally say that India took a pro-Russian, pro-Soviet line in things. Modi, Hindu nationalist, of quite an extreme variety, has come to power now, consolidated, it would appear, his power. But he hasn't taken India entirely into the American orbit. I mean, he's made very successful visits to both China and to Russia. He's spreading his purchases of weapons and so on across many countries. Do you credit Modi, whatever other criticisms I might make of him, with a fairly savvy approach to international relations?
To a certain degree, I think he does have that, and I think he's continuing on a tradition of Indian foreign policy where they do try to take a savvy approach. I think that in the Nehru era that you mentioned, they were much more idealistic, and they had a lot of third world solidarity with Indonesia as well, and with the non-aligned movement. And I think even with China, they had a sort of good relationship until the war. So I think that since the end of the 90s, though, Indian leaders have traditionally taken a more strategic approach, and I think that's what Modi's been trying. So it's interesting that, you know, he's known in India for having a bad relationship with Muslims, and, you know, for his when he was the governor of the chief minister of Gujarat, and there were those riots there. But interestingly, he's paid so many visits to Middle Eastern Muslim countries, and he's built sort of strengthened India's ties with a lot of these Muslim countries. So he's kind of good at playing both sides a lot of the time.
India is what Russia used to be said to be, an enigma wrapped in a mystery, and so on. So the future, are the stones the limit, or might they start throw something hotter?
Well, I think I would say that it's unlikely that it would turn into a proper armed conflict. India is generally quite cautious when it comes to wars and military activity, even with, you know, a country which, like Pakistan, over which it has a great strategic advantage, and obviously with China it's got a massive disadvantage. And I think China also is really seeking to contain some of these issues. So I guess it's just a matter of how they can sell a peaceful outcome to their domestic populations and have a sort of political gain and not be seen to be backing down. And I think the BRICS summit is coming up as well, which is an important...
That would be a good place to fix it. Exactly. Your Excellency, thanks for joining us on the Sputnik.
Thank you very much.
And now it's your turn to tell us what you think through the portals of social media. What's rattling, Gayatri?
So in all honesty, I actually didn't know either about the standoff between China and India. So I looked around on the Twitter sphere and I couldn't find many people knowing about it. The few that were around are amongst Sadanand Dume saying China's harsh language on the Doklam standoff shows it has no intention of treating India as an equal. And Claudio Tecchio says Japan has, on August 18, expressed support for India's stand on its own, now more than 2 months old Doklam standoff with China.
Well, surprise, surprise. I mean, Japan is supporting India because it's against China. The US is supporting India because it's against
Again,
China.
right.
So it's all geopolitics. But the thing is, these confrontations can easily catch fire.
And that's all the tweets we've got time for today.
Which, alas, means that's the end of the show.
But you can stay in touch with us on Facebook, Sputnik on Russia Today, or on Twitter and Instagram, RT_Sputnik. It's goodbye from me, Gayatri.
And from me, George Galloway. It's been marvellous.